Good morning. Okay, let's try that again. Let's get everybody on the same page here. Good morning. Wonderful, excellent job. My name is Chroust. I'm Executive Vice President of RILA, which is the Retail Industry Leaders Association. Show of hands, how many have heard of RILA? Okay, not bad, that's pretty good. So we are the trade association for all the major brands and the leading retailers in America. So Walmart, Target, Depot, down through the list through all the major brands who we represent. And we have a conference later this month. Many of you go to. I see a lot of familiar faces. And some of you don't. But it is really for the retail supply chain, both those executives and in retail and their supplier partners. And that's why I'm up here today, really to talk to you a little bit about, we're going to be facilitating a panel on competitive sustainability, essentially. Not green sustainability, like as most people associate with that word now, but competitive sustainability. But before we get going, I do want to introduce our panelists. A little bit about me. I run all of our supply chain efforts, as well as our finance, HR, really all of our retail executive-facing functions. And we have four very, very esteemed panelists to be with you today. One of them, hot out of his press conference that the Innovation Center is holding, is Atlanta's very own Mark Holified, who runs supply chain for Home Depot. That was timed, by the way. That was perfect. You can't do it any better. If we can duplicate that through the rest of the session, we're going to have a great session, let me tell you. Mark, just really quickly, straight into this. You've been talking, so you'll be okay over there. Just a little bit about you and your current role at the Depot, and we'll just kind of go down through and let you get a little feel for each panelist before we kind of jump into the conversation.
Okay, as you said, Mark Holified with the Home Depot. I'm Senior Vice President Supply Chain there. I've been working in supply chain pretty much my entire life. Graduated from the University of Texas with a degree in transportation. Worked for HEB Grocery Company for a while and learned all about transportation there. Worked for Frito-Lay a couple years. Did consulting and software with Dallas Systems Corp. And then spent 12 years at Office Depot as in supply chain. Worked my way to Executive VP Supply Chain there. And I've been with the Home Depot now for 5.5 years. My responsibilities include distribution, transportation, inventory management, supply chain development.
And it's great to have you, Mark. Thank you. To his left is Bill Connell, who is SVP at Macy's and an Atlanta native as well, so we were able to rope him into this panel to be here. Bill, just quick about your background.
Sure, Casey. I've been with Macy's for almost 4 years now. I did work there part-time while I was at school, so it's not quite as bad as it sounds. I've had a variety of responsibilities over those 40 years, from store operations to finance, and now with responsibility for logistics and operations. I also have responsibility for external collaboration, and as such spent a lot of time with Casey and some of the other various trade organizations around our industry.
And Bill is a board member, fellow board member I should say, with VIX. We're both on VIX, so we'll kind of get into touch of a few of those initiatives when we get there later on too. And to his left is Brad Blizzard, who's with Colgate-Palmolive. Great to have you, Brad. Just quickly about your background, also from Atlanta. We're a little trend here so far.
Sure, thanks. So I've been with Colgate for just over 5 years, and my team's responsible for logistics for Colgate, and that includes all of our freight, warehousing, special packaging operations, all the imports coming into the U.S. from Mexico and China mostly. I graduated from the other UT, University of Tennessee. We kind of like our color orange a little bit better than burnt orange, but as long as it's orange, we're good. But with a logistics degree, started my career with the Quaker Oats Company, moved around 6 or 7 times, a lot of different roles within manufacturing and logistics. Went to work for Coca-Cola Enterprises in the DSD side of the world for 5 years, working on dynamic dispatching projects and merchandiser scheduling type projects. And like I said, been with Colgate for about 5.5 years now.
And Brad, just really quickly, so Colgate-Palmolive, product suppliers he shared, just a few of the brands that you guys own to give people a sense. I mean, Macy's, Depot, people shop there, but they're actually buying some of your products. So go ahead and mention a few of those brands that you
Sure.
manage and own.
Yeah, we compete in really 4 categories. Oral care, obviously Colgate toothpaste, Ultra Bright toothpaste, those brands. Home care, some of the soap products that you use, Palmolive dish, those sorts of things, and oral care, home care, personal care. We have Speed Stick deodorant, those sorts of brands, and then
you smell lovely.
Yes, thank you. And we also own the Hills Pet Nutrition business globally for Colgate as well.
Great, thanks, Brad. Welcome. And to his left is Devon Rifkin, and Devon's with the Great American Hanger Company. So, Devon, a little bit about your background, if you don't mind.
Sure. I'm out of Miami. I started my business 12 years ago, Great American Hanger Company and hangers.com. We sell hangers to retailers, residences, celebrities, cruise lines. Have a really neat niche, and you know, high-end metal, plastic, wooden hangers, a lot of logos, and it's been a heck of a ride. I mean, a lot of changes. We're a leading internet retailer, which has its share of challenges. Went into the mail order catalog business. No one had ever seemed to do that in hangers, and that's worked out well, and that's what we do.
Great, and what's unique with Devon is, you know, not only does he sell directly to all of you, but he also sells to retailers too, which is a nice thing. And I've got to add this, when we were talking, I found it fascinating. Tell them about your #1 celebrity customer.
Well, our #1 celebrity customer by volume and looks, I suppose, is Jennifer Lopez. She bought 10,000 hangers for each of her 4 homes, which was wonderful, but it really still boggles the mind. I mean, it really does. But
try managing the demand for that inventory there, that little blip. But no, that's great. And we could also talk about some, I don't know if it's a Middle Eastern prince or there's a whole, runs the gamut of consumers that shop there, and I think that's part of the fun with the panel here. So anyway, Devon, great to have you as well. And I think today, obviously the theme is competitive sustainability. And you know, one thing that I really love about my job is I get to work every day with talented executives like who's before you here and talk with them about what they're doing, you know, what they're seeing, and I kind of really not only get in the details, but I also get to step back a little bit. And if we do that, you know, and why are we talking about this topic today? You know, I think it's really fun to look backwards. And of course, hey, I'm a retailer here, so I got to talk about this. And I wanted to put a little bit in perspective today's conversation and what we've all been going through. And of course, we all know we've been in the Great Recession. But what impact has that had on retail and the retail supply chain going across the table there? And I wanted to grab some quick stats about the toy of the year through history. I thought that'd be kind of a fun angle to share with you, a little bit of what's been going on, but put it in actually something that we just got through the holidays. It'd be fun to talk that. So, you know, if we go back into the late 90s, let's talk about that last boom time. And it was actually Toy of the Year for a couple years. Shout it out, what was the Toy of the Year in the late 90s? Right over here, heard it right over here. Did anybody hear that? It was Tickle Me Elmo. Tickle Me Elmo. Now, this is the fun part. What was the retail price of a Tickle Me Elmo? $30, about $30 roughly, give or take, you know, depends where you're buying it. But $30. Now here's the funny part. What did that retail for on eBay, right? Toy of the Year, super hot, can't get it. What did that sell for on eBay? 260, or 1,000 over here. $1,500 was the average eBay price. There was quite the black market, or it was called a gray market, for the Tickle Me Elmo in the late 90s. Now, if that doesn't describe a little bit of irrational exuberance, I don't know what does. Now let's take it to a decade later. We're going right into the Great Recession, and in 2009 was when, as retailers and consumers, we really felt, you know, we started in the 2008s, but 2009 is when it happened. What was the Toy of the Year in 2009? Xbox, Wii, iPhone.
We.
Now, I would make fun of, 3 years ago I would have made fun of the answer of the iPhone as a toy of the year, but now you see all these little kids, even like 12 months old, playing with it. It is a fair answer. It's a very fair answer. It was the Juju Pets. Okay, somebody said, I see a little Arsenio Hall fist pump back in the back there. It was the Juju Pets. And for those, you don't, how many know Juju Pets? Okay, and it doesn't surprise me. I wasn't really up to speed on it either. I had to like Juju Pets. And they were during that year. And it's this little hamster. It's this little robotic hamster that kind of moves around. You can buy a whole series of them. Anyway, that was the toy of the year. What was the price of the average Juju Pet? $8. So again, put that in comparison. Now, again, you can't get this toy. It's on the market. What did it cost on eBay? A whopping $60. So you can really see that the transgression, really, you know, the progression of what happened there. And just for fun, what was this year's toy of the year? Yeah, right up here. It was the Leapfrog Leap Pad was the toy of the year this year. And I think if it's a good sign, let's follow the toy of the year. This is going to be my correlation for my economic forecaster here, I think. That price of that toy was $100. And on eBay, it only retailed for $150. So I think, you know, it's kind of good. I think that shows we're kind of starting to come out. A toy of the year to be a $100 toy of the year. For me, and really if you talk to the retailers, they're going to tell you the exact same thing. You know, this holiday season we had a lot of optimism. Now granted, we had a lot of optimism last year and we kind of dipped a little bit after we got through spring. But this year we're very excited about the great holiday season that happened before us. So, you know, obviously a little bit, we all know the economy, but guess what happened within the retail supply chain, all this stuff that we had happened over the 3-4 years. And again, if you want a reason why we're hitting on this topic today, this is it. I'm gonna read a list to you. Stephen Barry's, Goodies, Gottschalk's, Boscov's, Mervin's, KB Toys, Bombay, CompUSA, Levitt's Furniture, Value City, Wilson's Leather, Crabtree and Evelyn, Fortunoff, Hollywood Video, Ritz Camera, Blockbuster, Borders, Linens and Things, and Circuit City. Those are all retailers, my friends, that went bankrupt in the last 4 years or so. And that's why we're talking about this panel today. There's a lot of people that through this environment did not survive and struggled to make it through. A lot of our retailers, you know. And it's really been about what initiatives have you put in place to really help survive this? And what are you doing the next 3 or 4 years and some of those challenges and opportunities there? And we're going to spend a little bit of time about that. And what we're going to do today is we're going to talk a little bit with them about their initiatives that they've put in place first over the last several years to kind of weather the storm. Maybe the word might be survive with the context I just shared. And then we'll turn it over to you for some questions about those initiatives midway through. And then we'll resume the conversation. I'd like to talk a little bit about their challenges and some of the opportunities they see in the next several years, you know, to really maintain that competitiveness and that position they've been into. So why don't we, you know, Mark, your company's hometown here. Why don't we start with you here and we'll hit a little bit. Let's talk with the audience. Tell us about some of the initiatives really that have helped you over the last 3 years kind of improve your bottom line, some of those margins, really controlling costs.
Right. Thanks, Casey, and boy, what an uplifting opening.
Yes.
With the long list there. Certainly, the last 5 years have been very eventful at the Home Depot. You know, one of the things that people talked about is housing, maybe first into the downturn. I mean, the housing bubble did burst, and this created a great deal of the issues that we're in today. Our business closely related to housing, given we're a home improvement retailer. We track a statistic called private fixed residential investment, and it's the percentage of fixed residential investment as a percent of GDP. This statistic since 2007 or so has been bumping along a 60-year low. So it's been very tough in terms of fixed residential investment, and of course everyone involved with the home has been impacted by that. But having said that, given the downturn, our company had a lot of things to work on. We invested through the downturn in a number of areas in our company. We invested to ensure that the store appearance was good. We invested to ensure that the help that you can get in our stores is good. And we invested to change our supply chain and really position ourselves for the future there. For the first 30 or so years of the Home Depot's history, it was a direct-to-store model from a logistics perspective. Product moved directly to store. We figured out that that needed a change, and it needed to adopt a more traditional central distribution model. Our stores also, we had operated on a very decentralized basis in terms of inventory management. When I first got to Home Depot, I was told, Mark, you've got 37,000 people within the Home Depot who can order product into a Home Depot store. Wow. And I was in charge of inventory, and I was way over plan. So a lot of hands on that steering wheel, and too much help.
Yeah, I mean, that's an amazing shift if you think about that, going from, really what Mark's saying is he flipped his entire supply chain replenishment model, going from DSD really to a centralized replenishment. And I think, it is kind of, but you did have some interesting, economic factors. One thing I always find interesting about the home improvement markets is, even in some of the prior recessions, they've really been able to weather it, because when people weren't buying new houses, then they were investing in fixing up their current house. So there's still always some strong demand there. And, to make that investment in this time, I think it's very thought-provoking on your side here a little bit. Mm-hmm. So talk just a little bit about, the distribution network a little bit and the flip there that took place.
Right. So our product, as I mentioned, was primarily direct to store. About 20% of goods measured by the value of the goods went through central distribution. About 80% of the dollar value of goods went directly to the store, and about 80% was ordered directly in the store. We took a look at the supply chain and looking at transportation costs being the biggest component of cost in our supply chain. We knew that changing to a central distribution model would improve our transportation economics, moving us from parcel freight and LTL freight to truckload freight, and just continuing to convert those modes upward to a lower cost transportation solution. So we set out a plan to implement a flip from 20% central distribution to about 80% central distribution. We developed a sort of a different concept in terms of the distribution that we do. Having the benefit of not having a distribution network that was fully built, we said, hey, what's the way you would do this with a white sheet of paper? And we adopted some distribution practices that aren't widely used in hard lines, but more frequently used in soft lines, high fashion goods, produce, those sorts of things that you don't want to have in a distribution center. And we were able to leverage information technology to really substitute for product in a warehouse. We opened 19 of these flow-through distribution centers. We call them RDCs, Rapid Deployment Centers. And those now handle about 2/3 of the items in the store are now rolling through there, about 50% of the cost of goods through there. Combined with our other distribution centers that we have, lumber and bulk DCs, and our import and seasonal DCs that we have, about 70% of our goods in rough numbers goes now through central distribution, about 30% direct to store.
Yeah, and so the theme really, if you had to summarize it, is about flow. I mean,
Right.
that's what we're really trying to create in those DCs, just to flow the product.
Right. Really substituting information for inventory.
Yep.
And
That's great.
adopting new technology.
And how many RDCs, what was the time period you opened up those RDCs?
Yeah, we have 19 of these RDCs. We opened them across 3 years. So the last 2 years we opened 7 DCs each year, and that was a major effort. The Home Depot, we've got a very committed board, executive leadership team, and a very committed supply chain team that was able to make it happen.
Now that, my friends, is called a project. 19 DCs in 3 years. And I don't know if people are in the DC building business and really opening a DC, but I can appreciate what goes into making that happen. Well, let's keep on going down, rather than just going straight down here. We'll kind of shift it up just a little bit. Maybe Devon, we'll kind of jump to you a little bit here, and you know, let's talk about some of the things you've really done in the hanger business. Again, wearing both hats, perhaps, you know, to really innovate and you know, put yourself out in a competitive position.
Well, one of the things that that had happened with us is we were growing so fast, and we were literally moving every single year. And it got to a point in 2007 when we said, we just can't keep doing this, it's inefficient, we really need to get serious about this business. And we built out a beautiful office in Miami. It was 15,000 square feet, it could hold 125 people. At the time we had, I guess, 60 or 65 people. And also had, you know, thought, you know, Miami's really a very difficult place to ship from, particularly if we don't specialize in shipping to Latin America. So we were looking at 5 or 6 different states, and I'm proud to say that Georgia had convinced us to move to Savannah, and it wasn't just because they took me to the Masters either. It was really, although that was nice, but really Georgia by far was the most aggressive, you know, pro-business state, and that's probably one of the most important things that happened in our business. Well, anyway, we built out a distribution center in Savannah and had started this in 2007, and we moved in to all these facilities in October 2008. The paint wasn't even dry, and it was like someone shut the water off. So not only were we dealing with the, you know, a tough economy, but we had just committed to the next 6 or 7 years, which was, you know, frightening. Unfortunately, we went from 60 people to about 25 in the course of a week. We were very, very aggressive because we had scaled for growth over 6 years. But one of the things that really changed things was we had a distribution center in Reno, and we closed our Miami warehouse, and started shipping from Savannah, which saved us a lot of time and a lot of money. So then we decided that what we needed to do was really do things on the expense side, kind of really seeing the writing on the wall that things may get better, but we're not going to expect them to get better. And we actually got very selective with who we chose to sell to. If the margin wasn't there or the credit wasn't there, as a very small business owner, in sharp contrast with the panel, we needed to be selective. We're not a bank, and we're not just here to say, yes, we'll take on any customer. And so what ended up happening was we opened up a facility in China so that we could, it was a consolidation facility, so that we could better control the factory flow and pulling from inventory when needed. The biggest thing, though, that we did was a very big percentage, I'd say 80% of our business is wooden hangers, and a good percentage of those are logos. So one of the things that we did was instead of having a 4-month lead time with our logos, we decided to opening up a printing operation so that we could take the inventory that we had, print inside of a week, and cut down on almost 4 months of lead time. We didn't really want to get into the printing business, but we got into the business of facilitating a lot of hanger sales that our competitors couldn't and, you know, didn't want to get into. So really, since then, I have to tell you, it has been extremely challenging. I'd love to sit up here and, you know, it looks very glamorous that, you know, we won these awards and that awards, and, you know, we really grew, and we own the name hangers.com, but there's a very challenging side to that every day that I think people need to know about. And it starts with, the bottom line really is, you've got increased cost of goods, you've got a shortage of material, you've got a shortage of labor, you've got currency issues, you've got fuel issues, inbound freight issues, and then as an internet retailer, where we know everybody likes and demands and is really entitled at this point to free shipping, we absorb that cost once it goes out. So I'm glad that we moved to Savannah, because that was one of the major things that had saved us, but to then have to pay for freight has been extremely challenging, and we continue to do that.
And we'll talk about some of those challenges in the second half without, you know, I find it, you know, really interesting, you know, Devon, that where everybody's struggling to make sales and, you know, trying to do everything they can to maintain, you know, perhaps on a good day grow the top line. You're actually saying, hey, I'm not gonna just take any sales, and that takes some foresight. I mean, talk a little bit about that. I mean, what did that mean to you in your terms of who were you turning down, what type of orders, and a little bit more about the why, because I think it hits some of the supply chain things we're talking about.
Well, hangers are broken down. You can sell hangers in two categories. One is hangers for resale in a store, and the other is hangers for use. And of course, one of the things that I knew would happen is the retailers would demand using our resources so that we inventory for them, and then they take smaller, more frequent shipments, which puts a lot of strain on us. So, with margins shrinking, we decided that we would, really tighten up our credit procedures and take these retailers and just say, listen, if you can't give us a deposit or the margin's not going to be there, we really can't sustain a business where we're selling to people like that. And the other thing that we made sure of is that our biggest account was never more than 2 or 3% of our sales. When we were growing at the height, we had a couple of accounts that were 15 or 20%. But when you start reading about, a lot of the names that you had mentioned, it is really just a numbers game. And so I really wanted to put ourselves in a position where we could control our own destiny as best we could, instead of having accounts that, were 20% of our business and then gone tomorrow.
And how long did it take you to open that facility up in China and really get everything working and streamlined over there? What was that time period to really get that moving?
Well, I traveled over there so much and kind of laid the groundwork in advance. So by the time we did it, it didn't take that long. It was about 3 months. Yeah. It was about 3 months. Yeah.
And what was the biggest challenge, kind of ramping up that operation over there?
Communication. It was definitely communication, and I have been to China 70 or 75 times in the past 10 years.
And for their benefit, I think you source out of 4 countries. What are those 4 countries that?
We source out of China, we source out of Vietnam, we source out of the United States, and in some respects, and Central America.
Excellent, excellent.
Yeah.
Well, good. I think it's kind of fun, and Devon hit that too a little bit. That it's not just the big players, but all your small players too. There are even some of the same commonality of issues, and I think what's also fun is, Devon touched on it a little bit there, how the supply chain does all work together, and some of the retailers were pushing him to really inventory for him and hold that inventory, which was a common theme and some of the model that really has emerged lately. Bill, let's go back to you a little bit here and talk about Macy's. You guys have had a definite resurgence on a lot of fronts, and let's talk through some of those initiatives that really have made some of those improvements, as well as cut some of those costs.
Sure, happy to, Casey. There are really 3 major initiatives that our company has undertaken, and that we believe strategically has positioned us to have the kind of results that we had in 2010 and 2011, which were by any measure very nice to look at. They are My Macy's, which is really locally relevant assortments. So inventory localization, that's our My Macy's initiative. Omni-channel, which is emerging out of our direct-to-consumer business. And then a program we call Magic Selling, which is interacting very, very closely with our 130,000 sales associates and retraining and repositioning how all of those folks in our organization interact and engage with our customers. The first 2 I'll talk about. There's not a big logistics component to the third one. My Macy's localization is a complete transformation for a department store company as to how we do business. Historically, Macy's is 150 years old. It's the end result, Macy's and Bloomingdale's are the end result of about 65 department store companies that over 150 years consolidated, expanded, consolidated, and became the company that we are today. The department store model historically had regional buying offices that delivered inventory to stores. And the store's job was to sell what the regional buying organizations delivered to them. My Macy's changes that paradigm by 180 degrees. And it says the store's organizations will determine what inventory, what assortment changes are locally relevant to that market. The business in North Atlanta is not identical to the business in South Atlanta, and you shouldn't buy them that way. So in 2009, we consolidated into one national buying organization, but created 69 district organizations, each managing roughly 10 to 12 stores, with the responsibility of owning that core assortment, but then tailoring the assortment to be locally appropriate as to style preferences, size preferences, color preferences. It is a complete change and a major initiative for our company for the foreseeable future. That has major logistical implications on our supply chain. You just said smaller, more frequent shipments. Locally relevant inventories generate smaller, more frequent shipments. And we recognized that that was going to occur because you're not buying a case pack of 16 in a standard size scale anymore. Okay, now you know you only need 12 for that store, and you can actually focus the size assortment. That generates smaller orders, more frequent orders, and concurrent with the deployment of this initiative in 2009, we recognized we had to understand the impact on our supply chain and begin to re-engineer our supply chain. We were never, as a large company, we always had a very large LTL component. We were never able to be very much in the intermodal business. As we moved this on, we really began to recognize we have to find alternatives. So we created an entirely new, we had a distribution center structure that's roughly 25 DCs across the U.S. But we've now created what we call a merge center structure. And what a merge center structure allows us to do is, rather than trying to build large loads from individual suppliers to go to our distribution centers, we are merging from multiple suppliers in areas like Los Angeles and New York and building full trailer loads for our distribution centers. Concurrent with that, we've also been able to really begin to understand how to use intermodal and how to take those full trailer loads and now move them on rail, particularly where we go from New York to the West Coast and where we go from the West Coast to New York. Our business is really in three sectors, right? We've got the East Coast business with a lot of vendors that supply us nationally. We've got the West Coast business with a lot of suppliers that provide for us nationally, and then we've got a central U.S. business, and there's not a lot of vendor base in our business that's in the central U.S. So we're moving a lot of product coast to coast, or at least halfway coast to coast, and that just fits perfectly with the intermodal model. We feel it's important from a cost perspective, we feel it's important from a sustainability perspective, and we feel it's particularly important given what we are doing to change the way we run our business with this localization effort.
And give me a sense of the percent change and increase in intermodal, roughly ranges.
We went from 0 to 20%.
So a fairly significant jump, yeah.
A major change.
I said that intentionally. A tough move to make happen. That's a lot of change on your trans side. So let's talk about this, omni-channel aspect a little bit with you, Bill. And obviously, Devon's got hangers.com. Touch on that briefly. What are you trying to do there, and what's really taking place?
So Macy's.com and Bloomingdale's.com are far and away the fastest growing parts of our business. For 4 or 5 years now, the business has exploded. The growth has not been at all out of line with what you saw earlier today, being attributed to Amazon and some other retailers that are using direct-to-consumer. At the same time, earlier today, we saw, I think, e-commerce, mobile commerce, and social commerce, right? EMS. We believe it's O, which is omni. Any one of our customers should be able to buy anything we own through any channel. If she's in a store, she should be able to buy it in the bricks. If we don't have it in the bricks, we should look at the clicks in the store. If she's at home, she should be able to buy it through the clicks, but if we don't own it in the clicks, she should be able to buy it through the bricks. She should be able to buy it, or he should be able to buy it off their iPhone, off their iPad. Through any channel, we are now building the systems infrastructure and the distribution and support infrastructure to expose that inventory, whether we own it in large quantities in direct-to-consumer fulfillment centers or where we own it in smaller quantities in stores, and be able to fill those orders, if we own it, we should be able to get it to her.
Now, it's easy to say omni-channel, by the way, and hey, we're going to do, seamless integration across each channel, 360-degree view of the customer. But I mean, what does that mean in terms of the challenges to make that happen on the backside in terms of inventory management and just the operations thing? I think the front end is the easy part, perhaps.
Well, there is no easy part.
Yeah.
The front end is lots of challenges. The inventory location optimization is a huge number of challenges. What do you own where?
Yeah.
Because what the online customer doesn't like is I buy 5 things and they come in 5 different packages from 5 different places because that's where the retailer owned it. So how do we position the inventory so that we make the fewest packages with the most product for the customer, with the highest degree, obviously, of accuracy that this business requires. So at every level, from the web design to the fulfillment software design to the placement of buildings and to the determination as to whether we're going to fill that from a distribution center or from a store, all of that logic and all of those processes and operational systems are enormously challenging. And to your point, it's easy to say omni. It is a long journey to get from traditional bricks and traditional clicks to this integrated, omni-channel strategy that we've set out to accomplish.
I couldn't agree more, and we're going to hit on this just a little bit. I know, Mark, you've got an initiative kind of for the future, or even a little bit what's already started to take place, which we'll touch on. But first, I want to get to Brad and some of his initiatives at Colgate-Palmolive. And I think you're going to find an interesting one. I'll kind of do a little bit of a setup for him. We've heard this theme of consolidation on the order management side, and consolidation here again at Macy's. And Brad, talk through some of those initiatives. I know one front and center for you has been consolidation, too, of your plants.
Sure, yeah, just a little context on Colgate supply chain, who Colgate is. We sell $18 billion worth of goods across the world. We're very global in nature. We have a global supply chain. We sell our products in 220 countries. But it wasn't always that way from a supply chain standpoint. About 9 years ago, we embarked on a mission to become a global supply chain. In the past, we might have had 14 toothpaste plants, so kind of each division, each country was self-supportive in terms of manufacturing. Now we have 3 major toothpaste plants across the world that supply the world. So as you can imagine, our supply chain has gotten much more complex, our lead times have increased, and from a logistics standpoint, it's put a lot of pressure on our bottom line because of the coupled with the rise in fuel and the longer length of haul. So we find ourselves, in that predicament. We spend about $500 million in the U.S. On logistics. That includes our Hills business. We have about 40 DCs, 7 of which are big, major regional DCs for the Colgate business, and the other DCs support more of the Hills cross-dock DSD operation. So we find ourselves in a situation with much 40% longer length of haul. We also, because of that, we've done a lot of nearshoring. We bring in 25 loads a day from Mexico. We bring in about 5 or 6 containers a day from Asia into the U.S. And so, that coupled with the fact that our input costs, not only fuel, but most of our ingredients, most of our packaging materials are up 30–40% over the last 3 or 4 years as well. We find ourselves in a tough situation, and we can't, because of the economy, we can't raise prices. We can't grow volume like we want to. So there's a lot of pressure on the logistics and the supply chain organization at Colgate, and I know that I'm describing most major CPG manufacturer that is facing the same issues other than the length of haul. Couple that with the fact that what we've heard in a couple of different panelists talk about, our customers are demanding less inventory. They're trying to manage down their working capital and the money that they have invested in our inventory, which the only solution really is smaller, more frequent deliveries. So there's a lot of headwinds to our business, to our costs that we're trying to solve for currently at Colgate. Some of the things we've done in the last couple of years to help mitigate all of those issues is we've been very, very focused on taking miles and taking trucks off the street. And that's been our focus. Everything we do, we talk about what's the impact to miles, what's the impact to our fuel usage, what's the impact of the number of trucks that we ship. So several things. We looked at our distribution network within the U.S. And it's interesting, when fuel gets to about $5 a gallon like it did 3 years ago, it can certainly change your network, and you're a lot more cognizant of how many miles your products travel. So we opened up a couple of smaller distribution centers in the Pacific Northwest and one in Laredo to help us take miles out of the network. We also changed our import strategy. We used to bring everything into the Port of New Jersey, and we changed that to a dual port strategy where we now use the Port of Savannah and the Port of Long Beach for our West Coast DCs and Savannah for our East Coast DCs. Those things combined took about 12% of our miles out of our distribution network within the U.S. So that was one thing. We've also vetted out a lot of our smaller shipments. We used to take an order. If you wanted to order directly from Colgate, you could order 10 cases and we'd ship it to you. We're not in that business. We're not UPS. We don't want to be. They do that well. We can't do that. We can't afford it with our infrastructure. So we changed our commercial pricing policy to where we raised that limit, and if you ordered below that limit, we sent all those orders through a distributor. So we streamlined our operation that way. Intermodal. We're shipping 71% more intermodal now than we did 2 years ago, and it's had a fantastic. It's been a great story for us, both in terms of cost and sustainability as well. So those are some of the things that we've done. We've also we've applied a lot of resources to our customer development teams, supply chain experts that now sit out on our customer team, so that we can get to know more about what our customers need of us, as well as what to expect in the future. So that's where we find ourselves today.
Yeah, talk a little bit about, I know there was an initiative around packaging and third-party distribution for packaging. I've really found that very interesting too, when you and I were talking about this.
Sure, yeah, that's the other thing we did to reduce miles and costs. In the past, we would ship our products from our plants and some of our imports, toothbrushes, toothpaste, to third-party special pack operations. One was in Philadelphia, one was in North Carolina, we had one in Tennessee, but they weren't within our facility. So we had all those extra miles going from our manufacturing facilities into these other locations. They would make the floor stands, the twin packs, all the things you see out in retail, and then ship to our DCs. So we took all of those operations and moved them within our four walls of our distribution centers, so that we eliminate all the extra miles related to that.
Yeah, so I think you've heard some of these trends about, transportation, inventory, consolidation, and I think what's been unique has really been, there's been so much collaboration between retailers and suppliers, and we can touch on that coming up here. But there's also been a tension between the two. I think, Brad, it might have been you telling me, if not, maybe it was another one of our supplier executives, that a retailer, not to be named, but one of our top 10 U.S. brands, as a RILA member, had its major suppliers in the room and handed them a CD and essentially said, you have to get your days of inventory down to X. And it was almost halving the inventory levels that they're carrying in their store. And just think through the tension that can create and trying to work those through. Now, there's that perspective, but then there's also a whole collaboration perspective too, where everybody's working together, which we'll hit on that when we start talking about some of these opportunities. Thanks, gentlemen. This was great. Now, I want to go ahead and take a pause, and I'm all big about audience interaction here. And I know sometimes when I'm sitting out there, I'm like, I've got this question I would love to ask right now about something I heard. So we'll take some questions now, and then we'll take some questions at the end too. So questions for our panelists?
Very cognizant of, heard just the other day about, we were doing some training sessions for folks in another part of the world, in another time zone, and it worked out to be 3 a.m. for them, and we didn't realize that when we scheduled the thing. So you can certainly misstep easily if you're not constantly thinking about this. We do source in other countries. We have an Asia sourcing office in country over there that helps us to manage the sourcing process there. But certainly as we continue to globalize our supply chain, this is growing more and more important. The degree to which we can send people is certainly helpful, but of course it's very expensive. So I think Devon was talking about communication, the key challenge, making sure that that's constantly in the forefront, and communicating with sensitivity to different cultures, very important.
That's another, there we go.
State. Good morning. Very good presentation. My question is around reverse logistics. How much effort or how much emphasis do you all put on that initiative as a cost savings, as an efficiency move, that kind of thing?
I'll jump in with that.
Yeah,
one,
please, Bill.
Since I have responsibility for reverse logistics as well.
It seems appropriate.
You know, if it isn't bought or it isn't stolen, we've got to deal with it. So the first and most important thing I would say about that stuff that doesn't sell is it has enormous value, and you have to approach it as an asset with enormous value. We negotiate a percentage of it back to the original supplier, but a big part of our business is private brands. Therefore, we are the original supplier, so taking it back from ourselves is not an effective transaction. So the reverse logistics industry is, we find it to be very robust. We have practitioners that specialize in that, and it's all about understanding for the commodity that needs to be liquidated what the best value channel is. Some of it is direct to jobbers, some of it is sold online, some of it makes its way offshore, and some of it makes its way into off-price stores, you know, in North America as well. So, great question, a very important part of our business, and I'm sure my colleagues here would have, you know, essentially the same views.
Do you have a dedicated return facility, Bill, at all?
We have, they're within, they are sections of our distribution centers.
Okay.
We've got two major central return centers, one on the East Coast, one on the West Coast, and then smaller ones throughout the country.
Good.
Sure, we were, yeah, you know, we were late to the forward logistics game, so we focused on that first. But we have focused on reverse logistics recently and have opened centers now that operated by third parties where we centralize our returns and deal with them in those centers.
Good. Other questions? This is your chance. Okay, well, let's keep, oh, there we go. Yeah, please.
Hello, Terrell Price. For Devon, why hangers? Why did you decide to go into the hanger business?
He has a lot of clothes.
I'm trying to think of a number of ways to answer that. The real answer is that I just felt that it was you know, one of the most used items in the world that people, you know, pretty much just take for granted. They're sort of like pens, you know, that end up in your drawer at home. You're not really quite sure how they got there, and it was just interesting in the beginning, prior to starting it. It is and seems like a very mundane, unsexy item. When you get people talking about hangers, it's a very personal item, and there's a lot of passion, things that frustrate them, and things that, you know, they wish they had, and I wish it was all matching. And, you know, personally, I don't even care about hangers. I mean, I honestly, I really don't. I mean, I get it, but I just, you know, and they're nice, and they do take care of your clothes, but really and truly, it's just it's a very defensible item by nature, because everybody needs them in one way or another. And I thought that was something smart to get into. It was really just that.
Devon shared with me last night that he really wanted to meet J-Lo, is what he told me, but it's a little different answer to that.
Devon, we have to ask you, how big are your closets at home?
Actually, my section is very small.
Fair enough, fair enough, fair enough. Any other questions? One in the back. and one over here too. We'll take these two questions and we'll go ahead and go with the next part here. I'll go back here so you all can hear.
Thank you. Jock Menzies, the American Logistics Aid Network. 2 weeks ago at Davos, there was released the National Strategy for Global Supply Chain Security, prepared by the National Security Staff at the White House, and looking for international input. What do you see that doing to your supply chains going forward? Have you begun to look at it yet?
I didn't hear half the question. There was an echo. I don't know if you guys did.
They're buying some time. No, I'm just joking. Yeah, it was a little tough to hear back here. So.
Yes, at the World Economic Forum in Davos, there was released the National Strategy for Global Supply Chain Security, a document prepared by the National Security Staff at the White House, working with the Department of Homeland Security and following on actually a presidential policy directive, in some ways, number 8 of last year. I was curious if there'd been any looking at that document so far as implications and things we in business should keep an eye on going forward as it evolves. It's to be studied over the next 6 to 12 months, as I understand it.
Yeah, we're still reviewing the document, but I would say that we continue to be at the top tier of the CTPAT program that the U.S. Customs puts out, and we plan to continue to maintain that status with Customs.
Yeah, and most of our major retailers do undertake CTPAT initiatives, and one thing that did come out tied to that, which I'll share, is one of the initiatives following 9/11 was the 9/11 report that was approved by Congress was 100% container scanning. And one thing that Homeland Security is really, quite openly by them, they've struggled with, right now only 5% of all containers coming into the country are being scanned. And that's intentional though, because it slows down all the flow of commerce, and they've really started to undertake a layered approach to security. Instead of scanning everything, they're trying to identify what containers they should scan. And so a lot of our retailers definitely support that multi-layered risk approach. And obviously, our 100% container scanning is unfavorable with pretty much anyone who's bringing goods into the country. And there's a technology issue about false positives, false negatives. It's a dicey issue, but I think it's a very fair question. We had one question over here too, and then we'll go back to our second part of the program here.
Good morning, Jeff Huber with Siva Logistics. So my question would be that you guys all had challenges with your supply chain. With the current state of the economy, what pressure did that put internally on your logistics groups, the number of people that you have associated with that? And then what have you done with 3PLs to kind of push some of that off and utilize a little bit more resources from a 3PL standpoint?
Yeah, I'll start. Like I mentioned, with the economy being as it is for the past couple of years, we've had a tough time growing the top line, at least as much as we'd like. So it's put a lot of pressure to make operating income come out for our shareholders, and it's all about taking costs out of the bottom line. So we've been under intense pressure, and our goals for we call it funding the growth. Our cost savings plan is just keeps ratcheting up every year. Matter of fact, in the past 2 months, our fund the growth target for this year has gone up 3 times, and so it's putting intense pressure on us. And from a 3PL perspective, we do challenge our 3PLs. We use 3PLs in all of our distribution centers to operate those warehouses, and we use obviously third-party carriers. And some are in the room, and they can attest that we put a lot of pressure on them. If we have cost reduction targets, we expect them to understand what they are, and they're going to have the same targets and KPIs, and some of their revenue will depend on hitting those targets. So we hold them accountable. But I would, like to say that for the 3PLs in the room, that our experience has been they do a great job blocking and tackling. But what we can't let happen is our relationships turn into just transactional. We need new ideas. We've done everything we can do that we know to do within our 4 walls. We start looking outside of our 4 walls, and we start looking to our 3PLs to bring new, innovative ideas. And I think, quite frankly, that's been lacking from the 3PL space in terms of bringing us really game-changing new ideas and collaborating with not only us but some of our customers to help get to that next level of opportunity.
Yeah, I would say cost and service is always an issue in good times and in bad times. Perhaps more pronounced in bad times, but you know, we've had at our company, since we created the Central Logistics and Operations Organization, we have managed to improve by pretty measurable statistics cost and service for 16 consecutive years since we've existed. The only way we know how to do that is through collaborative innovation. And that means working with our third-party, our service providers and internally within our company on collaboration on people, collaboration on process, and collaboration on technology. And if you do those things, the innovations and the new ideas emerge, and you're able to sustain ongoing cost and service improvement.
Yeah, let's use this as a launch pad to really jump into looking forward here. We have a lot of service providers in the room, so let's dig into this topic just a little bit further. So obviously you guys are supportive of collaboration. You know, Brad, I heard you say we want ideas. So what does that mean? Okay, I'm a service provider, sit down here. How does that work in your organizations? Am I putting together a PowerPoint? How does this collaborative environment work to where these type of things really manifest and kind of come to the surface?
Sure. Well, we have a 3PL engagement model that we take all of our major 3PLs through, and it includes top-to-top meetings and, you know, joint goal settings and KPIs, and we meet once a month with kind of the folks that run the business. We meet once a quarter, top-to-top, the executives, and try to get buy-in. You know, and we just started that last year, so we're having some success starting to talk about innovation and what's next. You know, the difficult part is, you know, I've been saying this for a couple of years now, is if you look at the CPG supply chain space that we're in, you know, we all have distribution centers in Dallas Metroplex. We all have distribution centers in the Atlanta Metroplex and Chicago and LA and everywhere else. I mean, because that's where we're shipping to the same customers. That's where their distribution centers are located. We're shipping on average 28,000-pound trucks from our distribution centers to our customers' distribution centers. Guess what? I've benchmarked with enough non-competing companies to know that there are a lot of other ones that are shipping between 20 and 25,000-pound trucks, particularly in certain channels like drug, who just don't have the distribution infrastructure to take full truckloads all the time. So, you know, we're struggling with getting to that next level of savings and efficiency. We have to get together, and this is a role, getting back to 3PLs, that a 3PL really has to play, is you know, they know what's out there better than we do. We can go knocking on doors, and we can participate in RILA and GMA and all the different things that we do to try to see who might be interested like we are. But that's tough, you know, because we all have leases that expire. You know, ours expires next year, and so we may find a good partner that's interested. Their lease expires in 3 years. They're in different buildings. It's tough to get the right parties together. So we're looking for those types of relationships and for 3PLs to bring that to the table a little bit.
Well, I think, and let's hit on this, because I found this really fascinating. We're talking about, you know, it's not only with your 3PLs, but other competitors. I know you were working together on a collaborative, speaking of those truck sizes. Why don't you share that quickly with the group, how far, and you know, when you say collaboration, you mean collaboration?
Yeah, well, it actually came about through one of our major customers summoned all of their major suppliers to their headquarters and said, you know, we're tired of receiving a full truckload of Colgate product, a full truckload of Consumer Product B's products, and a full truck of somebody else's when we only need half a truck. And you guys need to get together and figure this out. So we actually, you know, and it was mostly competing companies, but it meant so much to us and another company that we compete with a little bit to have a subsequent call and follow-up meeting to say, you know what, let's figure this out. Let's make this work. And what it's going to take is going to take an investment by everybody involved. The retailers have to, they may have to say, you know what, okay, I want this, but let me help you. And by helping us, it might mean, you know, changing your the frequency of which you order. Okay, we're going to collaborate from a logistics standpoint with Company B and Colgate, but you need to order our products in the right sequence, the right cadence, on the same days, those sorts of things to help us out. And then the 3PL needs to make an investment in, facilities and technology to help facilitate putting all those products together that they might not have had to do before. So it's not an easy thing to do. It's not a new idea. 20 years ago when I worked for Quaker Oats, we were talking about this. So but I think technology has come to bear that will facilitate that. And also, 20 years ago, fuel was, $1.15 a gallon. So the burning platform is the rising cost of fuel, and the need to continue to take costs out of our operation to become more efficient.
And I really find that fascinating to think about that. You're partnering with your competitor to make sure you both are shipping full trucks to meet your customers' needs. I mean, that's really out of the box, and I love it. Now, Bill, this part of the hat you wear is collaboration with your trusted providers and suppliers. Talk through some of the collaboration initiatives you've taken. I think one of the ones I'd love you to talk about too is RFID and what's really happened in the RFID space, 10 years ago versus now. So I'll turn it over to you.
Well, RFID is a great example of collaboration. My first comment on collaboration, we retailers, up until a couple of years ago, were not necessarily known as the most collaborative. We tended to be more, these are the rules, follow them. The key change here is understanding who has to be at the table in order to really collaborate. What you need to do to identify I win, you win scenarios. So the first thing you got to get out of lexicon is anything that says I gain an edge over you by virtue of this conversation. In order to do that, we found very, very quickly, we've always collaborated with the operations side of our suppliers. So our suppliers, distribution centers, and our distribution centers always had good working relationships, as did our carriers. And our buyers generally had good relationships with the sellers. But rarely does the buyer and the seller and the two logistics guys from the companies sit at the same table. When you do that, significant things happen. The communications piece that we talked about earlier becomes much more clear. The supply chain benefit, the supply chain low cost becomes much more clear. So here's an example, RFID. RFID had a staggering start through the 2000s, but I think part of that was it was an innovation, it was a solution in search of a problem. What's now occurred is we, the retail industry, have found a real legitimate use case having to do with maintaining physical inventory accuracy. And this technology is now ready to help us accomplish that because it lets us count quickly. But the only way retailers can use RFID is if the suppliers apply the tag at source. It's just not, there's no feasible way for the retailer to apply the tag. So over the course of the past 2 years, through industry collaboration, VIX, RILA, NRF, AAFA, our industry has come together to say, here's the use case, here's why it's good, and oh, by the way, this use case breeds additional use cases. So the suppliers are now starting to understand, well, if I do this for the retailer, oh, by the way, I'll be able to significantly take cost out of how I verify carton contents at the end of my line as I pick and pack shipments, because the audit and the re-audit programs there are very costly for suppliers. It's identifying the win and the win. So physical inventory accuracy improves, reorders improve. Reorders improve, sales improve, and you've got this flywheel of self-sustaining improvement. Sales go up, therefore wholesale purchases go up. Therefore, both parties win, and both parties have to make a pretty sizable investment to engage in the RFID transaction. But it improves the supply chain, and it forms what we believe will be a transformation in terms of how we transact. As big a transformation as the barcode was in the mid to late 80s in terms of what it's changed in our industry.
Yeah, and Bill, I want everybody to get a sense of how real, I mean, that was always the thing, is these big plans and all this hype, but I want them to walk away with a sense of how real RFID is. So talk about, I mean, true initiative at Macy's that's going on. I mean, you're using RFID. I just want to be that clear, and your plans hit on that just a little bit too.
We're using it in 8 stores out of 800. That's not very impressive. By August, it'll be in 800 stores. So we are right now outfitting the back rooms, installing the software, and engaging with suppliers to begin applying tags at source. So by mid-year this year, we hope to have a sizable part of our men's business, men's clothing, men's dressing, ready to go, so that we'll go on this frequent cycle counting once or twice a month to keep physical inventory accuracy at 97% versus its historical 65 to 75%. And then by 2013, we will have converted all of our replenishment business, that's about 30% of our business, to vendor source tagged RFID for the purpose of cycle counting. And I believe as we do that, our suppliers will understand supply chain benefits for this. Their suppliers will start to identify supply chain benefits from it, and we will identify additional use cases within the apparel and footwear sector, and then ultimately expanding into home products and into the accessories aspects of our business.
No, thanks, Bill. So, and that definitely is a trend across retail, which I'll share with you, is that, you know, many retailers in the last couple of years have been piloting RFIDs in a sincere fashion. It's really gained a lot of traction in apparel and footwear, is where it's really kind of had, no pun intended, a foothold. And then really from there it is expanding out wider into the retail, other categories. And a lot of retailers are looking to take these pilots and rolling them out to all their stores. So I think it's and Macy's is a great example of someone who's really found great results and embraced it, and that they are rolling this out. You know, Mark, let's shift on to you here a little bit with some collaboration, and a little bit, maybe I'll go one step back with the service providers. You know, as you look this year, next year, you know, what are you looking for your service providers? What type of things are top of mind for you?
Well, I think what we look for from our service providers is really innovation. I think that was mentioned previously. You know, it's much more than cost and service. It's much, you know, it brings so much more value if it's not a commoditized relationship. You know, one of the worst things that can happen is when we don't have that kind of collaboration, we don't have that kind of innovation, and it is just down to a transactional level. 3PLs need to rise to the challenge to bring real innovation and real solutions that will take us beyond where we are. You know, too often 3PL usage is based on offloading of risk or just commoditization of a product. It's time for us to be more innovative working together. That does require the service provider to be selfless in terms of this might hurt revenue for a period of time, but once you're in with us, once you are our partner, we build those partnerships and keep those partnerships for a very long time. So we look for partners who put the whole picture first and don't look at it as a short-term profit play.
And talk a little briefly about, you know, these trends looking forward. You know, okay, Bill hit on omni-channel and the multi-channel environment. I mean, how's that impacting the Home Depot, and where do you see this all going? Oh,
it's huge. I think you know, the list you went down. Here lately, the list of retailers that have met their demise, interconnected retail or online retailing, has been a factor in that. So it's top of mind for every bricks and mortar retailer out there that is exposed to online competition. We look at this connected world now is what we call interconnected retail. It's not just about putting up HomeDepot.com and selling all sorts of things on HomeDepot.com separately and distinct from what we sell in the store. We really look at this as an ecosystem, if you will, interconnected retail where the store is connected to the online presence and vice versa. E-commerce is but one objective of our online presence. We do want to sell to folks on HomeDepot.com, where that's the most convenient way for folks to shop. But we also look at HomeDepot.com to be a place that a customer can interact with a store, can work to find the store and interact with the store. You know, we now have inventory availability checking online. We now have buy online, pick up in store. You can buy online and return in store, which is a huge advantage, rather than having to go box up your stuff and tender it to a parcel carrier. You can now bring it straight to the nearest store, and that's very convenient for our customers, even if it's something that we don't sell in the store. So, and then finally we want to have our website be a place that customers can go for information. You know, we are a do-it-yourself home improvement retailer. We do expect our site to be a place that customers will find valuable information, be able to learn how to do those projects that they want to do, and be able to research their projects, and one day even maybe track their projects online.
And I think if you look at the trends, you know, 9 of the last 10 years, online sales have had double-digit increases. So, you know, there's a lot of growth and traction in that space. And, you know, if you look across, you know, the retail supply chain, you know, there's 2 things that are happening. Everybody's trying to get in-store returns and in-store pickup, and that's just to leverage their store base, right? All those assets that are stores, and kind of differentiate themselves from the online pure players only. So again, looking ahead, I want to step back and ask you guys, what do you see happening from the challenge standpoint? First, everybody loves to hear, you know, the budget question for this year. You know, is it really, and not the exact amounts, of course, but in terms of directional, are we staying the same? Have things loosened a little bit and budgets increased slightly? Did they decrease? What happened from your operational budget as it relates to the supply chain side?
Well, I think.
And you're allowed to evade the question if you want.
No, what I tell my team, and I think what's expected of us in a supply chain at the Home Depot, is continual supply chain improvement across the range of supply chain key deliverables, including better in stock, better inventory turnover, lower logistics costs, better service to our stores. You know, we've just begun this supply chain transformation at the Home Depot. I see productivity opportunity as limitless, and our financial leaders see that as well, and therefore they give us tough targets to hit there. You know, fuel's always a wild card. I think that's something that we have to think about, and think about how we manage that. At the Home Depot anyway, we're going to continue to be challenged to bring productivity every year.
And as you all jump in, if you don't want to talk budgets, I would love to know on fuel. I mean, how are you planning for that? I mean, they're talking about fuel getting back up to $5 a gallon again. You know, is that top of mind as a concern? What do you think?
Yeah, it's a huge concern, and a couple of things that we're doing. We're doing a lot of scenario planning. So we have full-time modelers looking at our network saying, okay, what if fuel hits $6 a gallon? What if it hits $7? What if it hits $8? What does our distribution network look like at those different prices? What if it goes down to $3 or $2? Just to get a sense for what would our distribution center look like, how would it run most efficiently at those different price points. So a lot of scenario planning so that we have an idea as things start to happen, what levers we might want to pull to help mitigate that. And then the other thing is, I'm a card-carrying member of T. Boone Pickens' army of you know, reducing our dependence on foreign oil, and you know, so we're definitely looking hard at natural gas fleets, putting together dedicated fleets and trying to plug in natural gas fleets where it makes sense. Right now, until the 15 liters come out, we're kind of limited on where we can do that. But I think that's coming, and it's something that we all should think hard about and get behind.
And who are you voting for in the 2012 election? No, just joking. Go ahead, Devon, you're good. Yep. Okay. Yeah, good. And I thought we had till 11:30. That's fine. Well, I'll turn those last question to you, someone in the audience. I don't want to steal the last question. And we have our taker right over here, so go ahead, Mark.
Mark Solomon, DC Velocity Magazine. It's for either Mark or Brad. Talk to the 3PLs about collaboration, and they'll say, we'd love to collaborate more with our customers. We don't have access to the upstream strategic thinking to go beyond the four-walled warehouse execution. We're told to be reactive. We don't have an opportunity to be proactive. How do both of you respond to the 3PL's concerns, which I'm actually working on a story on this issue, and I've already talked to several 3PLs who make that claim.
So this may be on the record, so.
Yep. We have an annual conference where we bring in our key 3PL providers, and they spend a couple days with us. One day we present to our 3PL partners and our other service providers our strategy for supply chain at the Home Depot, and we spend a fair amount of time around that meeting talking with folks about that. So we try to give our carriers and 3PL partners a view of our strategy, where we're going, and then we try to continually engage with them to manage the business together.
Gentlemen, any other comments on that question?
Yeah, from our perspective, I mentioned it before, and we were hearing the same things from our 3PLs, and they were basically saying, you know, put your money where your mouth is. We'd like to collaborate with you more, but you know, at the end of the day, you're beating us up on price and service, and you know, so let us know what's going on. What's your 3-year strategy? How do we fit in? So that's why we started last year this we called our 3PL engagement model, where their senior executives meet with our senior supply chain executives. We review currently, you know, their relationship with us, their performance. Here's where Colgate supply chain wants to go. We talk about things like natural gas trucks. We talk about things like collaboration with other manufacturers, and it's a working document that we have a list of 23 things with one of our 3PLs that some of them are very strategic and some of them are more operational, and we assign people to you know, there are to-dos, and we assign people to those. Some of them are senior executives that are assigned to something like collaboration. What's the framework to go out and collaborate with other manufacturers? Those types of things. So that's how we're starting to try to drive more of that high-level collaboration.
Well, Mark, Bill, Brad, and Devon, thank you so much for your comments and your insights. I want to thank the audience also for your participation and your attendance. And if we could have a final warm round of applause for our panelists. Thank you.